Welcome to Conscious Business Talks. I have to say, I think I've fallen in love again. So I think you have already know that every so often I come across something that makes me just feel like I've been struck into stillness and reflection. And it allows me, like, there is this dance that goes on between what I'm perceiving to be my current reality as I'm looking at the world through the eyes and the lenses that I have, and then something that makes me take a deep breath and look at it again. And also, the flip side of it is always this part. Shouldn't even say it's the same, really. There is no flip side to it. There is this other aspect of my life, which is me, showing up in the world as an entrepreneur, and how everything that I'm doing in my personal life and things that I'm perceiving around me, how they affect me as in my business life, in my professional life. How does it show up in how I look at the world as I see it for myself, my business, my clients, and everybody that I come in touch with as stakeholders who interact with me and my business. So today was no different. But before I do, I want to make sure. There you go. Matt says we have sound, and YouTube we have sound too. You are on YouTube, let me know. But I'm assuming if you have sound here, it's everywhere. So yay, thank you. And Fridays are kind of funny because sometimes you kind of start to wind down your week on Fridays, and by Friday evening, which is when we're airing the show right now, I'm never sure if you guys are winding down or if you, like me, I confess I was winding down. I was actually more like just caught in that love fest of the beauty of another soul, right? It's just thank you, I appreciate that. Matt tells me we have sound everywhere. Anyways, the person who's the beauty of whose soul has me enthralled today is this human being named David Whyte. And maybe you're already familiar with him. I was not, until a friend sent me a link to say, you gotta watch this. And there are a few things that just even in that one sitting, the number of things I picked up on, and I'm fired up. Okay, part of me is fired up, part of me is still musing. It's a weird yeah, this is too fun to not share. Matt says, let there be sound, and there was lots of it. Well, then there we go. We have lots of it, and that's a good thing, because soliloquies, when you can't hear me, are not. Anyway, part of me is just already there are so many thoughts firing as I think of the connections for work that I'm doing for my business to grow it in different ways, and see how and in what fashion do I want to grow it, and so on. And also work that I'm doing with my clients, especially where someone is stuck and we're trying to kind of get over a particular hump to see what amazingness awaits on the other side. So there are definitely thoughts and ideas that keep just sparking as I'm thinking about some of the words that I heard today. But then there is also this part of me that is still digesting and understanding and processing what I heard today. So without further ado, let me share what I'm talking about. So I don't know if you know of David Whyte, but I urge you to look up his poem, The Faces at Braga. That's only just one of the pieces that has me enthralled today. But I'll read a couple of verses from it. But what I what I want, I would really invite you to just go and read the whole thing. And I'll give you a little bit of the backstory to it. So David was recounting this story about a party that he threw at his place. It was a gathering of some sort, and there were all these people who were coming, and his little daughter, she's 7 years old, and she is so excited at all the goings on and all these people who are supposed to be coming and so on. And she's part struck in terror because she is like, what did he say? He says almost catatonic shyness. So as you can imagine, that's quite the mix, right? So this little wee child is clinging to him, and he says that she had her fists in his shirt all, tight. So the shyer she gets, the tighter the fist get. And some people, as he's greeting them, they don't even realize there is this wee little munchkin wrapped up hiding, because she's hiding. I guess she's hiding behind him, maybe. But anyway, but there are other people that she kind of peeks out from this side or this side, and she greets them or interacts with them or smiles at them. And at first he's not quite picking up, but then there is this monk that he knows. He comes walking up, the drive, and this little one lets go of his shirt, and all of a sudden she's sprinting down the gravel to greet this monk. And he says she's never met him before. So the fact that she took off to go greet him and hug him was like incredible, to say the least. But he was then making jokes about this gentleman, and he said, he's the kind of face that you can't deny him anything. That's how. But it's not what he's saying about what kind of face he has. You have to kind of read behind it to see what he's saying is that the face that he greets the world with. So it's not just what you perceive, it's also what you sense. So the greeting is a very wholesome, holistic kind of greeting, as how he shows up to meet the world. And this is what, as conscious business owners, this is stuff that we talk about so often. This perception of others, of you, how they perceive you, is not just what you present on the outside, but how they sense of you subconsciously, what the soul picks up of another soul. And yes, there are definitely instances where it doesn't work, that there are people who con other people. I get it. But I think it also is a reflection of how aware and conscious and open we are to what our senses are actually telling us. Because I know for sure I've talked myself out of what my instincts were telling me when I was like, nah, it's not gonna be. So I was talking myself out of it. And a lot of people who've been conned by other people will often say, my gut feeling initially, there was just off-putting thing, and I kept talking myself out of it. So I don't know, but let's just stick with this particular thought, that this friend of his, this monk, and he joked, he said, he's a great fundraiser, because if you're in a room with this gentleman, there's no way you're walking out of the room without writing a check unless you use the fire escape or something. So that's just how difficult it is for somebody who meets him to say no to something that he's asking. And anyway, so he says that his monk friend went and sat at the kitchen table, and the way he described his kitchen table, he said it's this long, piece of wood, and on one end is this like raised part, on the other side of which is the fireplace. So there's logs burning in the fireplace. It's just, he painted a beautiful, welcoming picture. So he, unbeknownst to him, the monk friend goes and sits on one side of that table. And then up comes, a few minutes later, and he says his daughter is back clutching, hiding behind him, kind of thing. And up comes on the driveway another person. And I have to, let me find, if I can find the words to actually read you what he said, because it was quite the description. And what he said was that this woman comes up, and let me just see. Sorry, I had it all pulled up, and then, of course, as things would have it, then it was not. But if I don't find it, I don't find it. But it would be really cool if I do find that. And he goes, oh, there we go. And he goes, around came the corner was a completely different face. It was a woman with a face that had been crushed by disappointment. But it was also the kind of disappointed face that was looking for more disappointment to corroborate its previous disappointments. And of course, the little wee one, she could hardly breathe at all, and she just hid behind him, and there was no way she was coming out to greet anybody at that point. It was just, again, that pure catatonic, I'm just hiding. So what he felt, however, was, he says, my God, isn't that interesting? Just because of the way a person is looking at the world, yeah? This woman doesn't even know what didn't run out to meet her. She doesn't even know what was hiding from her. Because of the way, because what was hiding from her wasn't coming out because of the way she was meeting the world. And he says, then he goes in, and of course, contrast, right? So as he goes in, he realizes his monk friend is sitting on this side of the table near the fireplace, and the woman that we just talked about is sitting on the other side of the table from the monk. And there are these two faces in contrast, as if to bring home this point. And as he looked at the two faces, he said, those two faces have completely and utterly different futures, just by the way they're actually looking out, and how this face is, this face on this side, it's going to get all kinds of incredible help, both visible and invisible. And I love the way he talked about the invisible help, because he says invisible help is the help you don't yet quite know you need. And that's a rabbit hole my whole being went exploring after that. But he said, this face is, just by the way this face is showing up in the world, is going to get all kinds of incredible help, both visible and invisible. And this face with the incredible invitation in it for life. And I thought to myself, how cool is that? What if we just show up? Like, what kind of face are you showing up to greet the world? And are you aware of what's hiding from you and what you don't even know didn't come out to greet you? Or are you wearing the face of invitation for life, despite all that may have happened or not happened, so that all kinds of incredible help comes out to greet you and to provide you with stuff you don't even yet you need? Like, it was mind-blowing to me, just the way he presented the contrast. And then he goes on to talk about that he visits this small village called Braga. And he says it's very much visited now, but when he went to see it, there weren't very many people who were aware that existed outside of, I guess, the place that it was. And now I guess the outer world, including like far away outer world, really knows where it is. But anyway, he said that you have to kind of go through this. It sounded like a really dark cave-ish type thing. You go through a vestibule, and you're going and following this monk with a little flashlight that you turn on to get through the really, really pitch dark bits, or very dark bits anyway. And he said that he thought he was talking to a friend, like a group friend buddy, but then his eyes adjust a little bit to the light, and they haven't found their flashlight yet, so people are looking for the flashlight. But his eyes adjust to the darkness, and he realizes that he's not talking to his group buddy. He's looking at this I don't know if it was a rock statue or a wooden statue, but it's this really terrifying statue of a guardian deity, so to speak, with his spear that's coming out at you. And he goes, as soon as he perceived, his senses perceived what he was looking at, he almost leapt out of his skin. He was so terrified, right? Just, can you imagine just going through this dark and your eyes adjust and you think you're talking to your friend, and all of a sudden you're looking at this terrifying being with the spear coming at you and drinking out of a skull cup, like blood out of a skull cup or something. Like, oh my God, I can't even imagine, right out of the pitch dark. But he says the story behind the deity is that it's supposed to, tell you, or the idea is that you leave your fears out. But he had a different experience of it. The way he perceived it was that he saw it exactly how the carver meant for it to be seen. The person who carved this deity, what he wanted, or he or she wanted to, the emotion, the interpretation, the way he perceives it was that, no, it's not about leaving your fear out. It's about bringing the fear that you felt just in that moment, just exactly as it was, bring it all in. And he felt like that spear that deity was holding, it pierced through the terrible fear that he felt right at that moment. And that was the whole idea, that you're not leaving your fear out. The fear, you're bringing it exactly in all its terribleness and its paralysis, everything, you bring it in with you. And when they walk in, now they've got their flashlight working, and they walk into this room and they light all these yak butter lamps. And of course, this is a closed space, and now you've got the yak butter lamps going, so there's a lot of smoke going too. And as they look up, they're blinking to adjust to the smoke and to the incense that's coming, and the contrast between the pitch dark outside and the light that they've got now. And he looks up, and on the plinth there's all these, like, probably like 100 of these carvings. There's these wood carvings. And he said it was almost like he was, they had this same compassionate, loving, full of love faces as his friend, the monk, right? So as he's looking up at that, and he's looking at the faces of his companions and in this place, this thought strikes him, that how is it that we manage to carve such compassion, and we fill this solid wood and carving into, like, we just fill it with this sense of love. So when you look at it, you feel the delight of what the carver has etched into the faces. And with the passage of time and the wear of time, what you perceive from these faces is such compassion. The solid wood, set of carvings, so full of love and compassion and acceptance. And as he's looking at the faces, he's realizing, as human beings, we have all these malleable faces, these soft, malleable faces. And yet, so often we manage to have these faces that we have so often set against the world. And you would think it would be easier to use the malleableness of our faces to reflect the love and the compassion and the acceptance of another. And yet these wood carvings, through the carver's hands and devotion, have managed to reflect that so much better than we as living, breathing human beings do. And that those words that he used when he said, our own faces are so often set against the world. Yeah, malleable faces, so set against the world. I just had I just had a hard time moving past that thought, as part of me is still processing it, because it's on the surface, it's such a light thing, and yet the depth of it is mind-blowing. And as a business owner, I'm thinking, it makes me think how, as a human being with this malleable, soft self, am I choosing to show up, and how am I setting my face? Is it against the world, or is it inviting the world along with all that I bring to the world as value, as an offering to exchange? Like it's just processing in my head. And one thing I wanted to read to you is just a little bit of the poem from the Faces at Braga. And he said, "See faces in meditation, 100 faces carved above, eyes lined, wrinkled in the hand-held light. Such love in solid wood, taken from the hillsides and carved in silence. They have the vibrant stillness of those who made them. Engulfed by the past, they have been neglected, but through smoke and darkness they're like the flowers we have seen growing. Through the dust of eroded slopes, their slowly opening faces turned toward the mountain, carved in devotion. Their eyes have softened through age, and their mouths curve through delight of the carver's hand. If only our own faces would allow the invisible carver's hand to bring the deep grain of love to the surface. If only we knew, as the carver knew, how the flaws in the wood led his searching chisel to the very core, we would smile too, and not need faces immobilized by fear and the weight of things undone. When we fight with our failing, we ignore the entrance to the shrine itself and wrestle with the guardian, fierce figure on the side of good. And as we fight, our eyes are hooded with grief and our mouths are dry with pain. If only we could give ourselves to the blows of the carver's hands, the lines in our faces would be the trace lines of rivers, feeding the sea where voices meet, praising the features of the mountain and the cloud and the sky. Our faces would fall away until we, growing younger towards death, every day would gather all our flaws in celebration to merge with them perfectly, impossibly wedded to our essence, full of silence from the carver's hands." I didn't read you all of the poem because I skipped over the beginning of it, and I invite you to read it because it's just, do you feel the delight and the invitation to let the invisible carver's hands just bring the grain of love to the fore in us, and to wear our failures, our grief, all the things we have battled through, all the things that have tried to wear us thin as we grow younger towards death, but just literally taking all of what we have stepped through, the hardships, the fights, the grief, the joys, the celebration, whatever, and then wear it, including the fear, to step into whatever it is that we decide to greet the world with today. Open again in authenticity to bring value because we exist. Oh, I just there's, as I said, there's parts of me that are still just speechless. There are no words because it's still working through, but I didn't want to wait to share it because so many times these days I have felt, either myself or through working with my clients, I have felt the weight of fear and uncertainty and unknown and holding us back. So I know that I could be greeting the world even more fully, even more invitingly, even more grabbing the fear, and despite, like, with all the terribleness of fear and doubts, still just step through anyway to see what the invisible carver's hands hold for me. Okay, I'm going to see what you were saying. Okay, I love this one. Matt's been thinking, we're living in feeling, not conscious thought. Conscious thoughts can lead to a feeling, or do they influence them? Feelings can lead to conscious thoughts, or do they just influence them? Seems to be a vicious circle. So to break the circle, we can choose our thoughts. Can we choose our feelings without thought? Oh my. So when I think about this, the thought sparks a feeling, as it is meant to do. And sometimes, for me, I'll speak for myself. When I find myself in a feeling, I have the choice whether I want to continue looking in the direction this feeling inspires, or do I want to think a different thought and let the thought pass. Or sometimes I have to do nothing. I don't have to do anything. The thought itself will pass. I don't have to continue looking at the direction the thought was pointing me to. And so conscious thoughts, I think it's the awareness of thoughts. And the consciousness comes into being because we are aware of the thought. But we are aware of the thought in the manner that we see that this thought is passing. And if it is a thought that serves me and serves me well, I can look in further into the direction of where the thought points me to. I don't know if so we are a consciousness living within feeling. I think we are the consciousness witnessing the feeling. I think the being that we are has a consciousness. Or maybe you know what, I have heard it being, we are part of a bigger consciousness. We are part. So they're different. Words sometimes don't serve it well. Words sometimes fall short of the feeling in itself. And words don't always capture things in a way. Sometimes words change the meaning of what was. So words sometimes, I love words, but I am aware of where words fall short. In terms of, I've heard consciousness refer to this life energy, and I've heard of consciousness being part of the creator, that links us to the creator, I mean. So to me, consciousness is, there is the thought, there is my mind, and then there is the consciousness that ties me to the eternal wisdom that is within me, around me, part of everything that I know and part of everything I don't know. So whenever I think about a feeling, I think my thoughts spark the feelings, but the feelings are part of my witnessing things because my mind points and looks at different things. And this is a rabbit hole we'll explore another time, I think. But I wanted to share the faces at Braga with you because I just thought to myself, I've got more work to do because looking at this has got me so excited. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, wow, how much more richly can I show up? Because that guardian deity, I want its spear to pierce the fear that I feel when I step into something that makes me feel like, oh my God, am I going to look like a complete idiot doing this? Am I going to fall flat on my face? I'm going to have to put blah, blah, blah before I. Why don't I step into the world with even more trust and an invitation and an expectation that fits the vision I have of myself and the future I envision, rather than wearing my failures in a way that sets me against the world and I show up to corroborate the disappointments. I don't want that. I don't want more corroborating disappointments. I'm okay to be like the child who falls flat but then gets up and goes anyway. As business owner, my not only my livelihood but those that I serve, their livelihood, all our livelihood, and even more than that, bigger than that, my life itself, the quality of, depends on it. So, my goodness, I thought we would be talking for like 10-15 minutes tops on this, and here we are. So, much love to you. So glad you're here with me. And if you're catching it on replay or you watched it live, would love to hear your thoughts on this even afterwards. Let's exchange, let's grow together, and share with me how you choose to greet the world after seeing this, and share it with anyone that you think may need to have a different perspective on how they are inviting the world into their life. So I'll see you next Friday. Much love. Mwah!